personal recovery depends on.
Welcome to the Fred and Ethel Show. Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. The 52 questions that I referred to in the last episode, if you know who wrote the 52 questions about the traditions, please let us know. We think it was Greg P. We're not sure. First question is, what is unity? And how is it the practical foundation of our traditions? There's a line in the basic text that for some reason jumps out at me in the first tradition that the group is precious to the individual, and the individual is precious to the group. I can see what you're doing. Unity is, to me, the spiritual principle behind tradition 1. How is it the practical foundation? Well, the spiritual foundation is anonymity, and that's in 12. That's something that we all know. We talk about often. But unity being the practical foundation, if we're not unified and we're not together on this, it puts us in many different directions. And that's kind of where tradition 5 comes in. Of course, I'm going to jump around about, our primary purpose. If we specialized in multiple things, we would be a, what do you call that? Jack of all trades, master of none. You got any thoughts on unity and the practical foundation?
I do, and I had to write some down because I wanted to make sure that it came out.
Okay,
because...
Go ahead.
Now we're going to make some more paper noises. All right. One of the things that this helps me with is we have it in some of our readings, in the basic text. But what I get from this unity thing is that I'm equal and you're equal. And when I was never equal. I always thought I was less than, and I tried really hard to act like I was better than. And I still struggle with being equal, but this tradition tells me that if I'm going to be able to work this and I'm going to do this, that I have to understand that I am equal to everybody. Right? Everybody. That is very difficult for me and something that I have to practice on a regular basis because I don't know if we talked about this before, but I came in with no self-esteem, loathing self-esteem, got confused with low self-esteem.
Well, low self-esteem was a step up.
Right. And so I still, when I listen to people talk or something after a meeting or something, I still think, I wish I'd have said that. Yeah, that was really good. I wish I'd have said that because I still doubt myself. So it's important for me to understand that we're all equal. The second thing is that the important thing is for me is that we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to have a conversation. Most of us do not. And I'm not even talking about just in the program. Most people in general don't know how to have a conversation,
this
right?
Is so true. It's not a skill that's taught in school like it should be.
And somewhere in my first 5 years, I don't remember when it was or who even said it, but they told me that, communication is actually 90% listening and 10% talking. And that if I have ideas in my head that I want to say while you're talking, I'm not listening to what you're saying. I'm just giving you a counterpart. And so for me, the part of being equal is listening to what people say and giving them validity that even if I don't agree with what they're saying, we're equal and it's valid.
Right. Okay, the next question is, should we place our common welfare before personal welfare, and why? Well, for some reason, when I first read that, it kind of threw me for a loop because, to me, my personal welfare should come first. But if I don't have Narcotics Anonymous, if I don't have a group to go to, then my personal welfare suffers. It's not as safe as I would like for it to be. So the question is, should we place our common welfare before personal welfare? Yes. And it says so right in the tradition. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. And that unity can be disunity to me is things like, remember the whole smoking thing in the 90s and the Lord's Prayer thing in the 80s and
Ain't my fucking father.
Yeah, and whether or not to do Halloween, was that considered a holiday or a religion, and we couldn't do religious things at meetings. So Christmas trees and Christmas celebrations and stuff like that, was considered a religious endorsement. And those kinds of things just cause all kinds of disunity because everybody's got different feelings about all that kind of stuff. Go figure. I don't understand why, but they do. So, if it's going to cause a problem with the group, whether I agree with it or not, I'm going to shut the hell up. I just am. Because, like you said earlier, I'll say my piece one time, but I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
See, what I'd like to add is you had pet peeve in the last episode. My pet peeve, and I think it comes under this, is chanting. I hate chanting.
Oh, yeah. Because
it makes me feel different, right? It makes us feel different. And I think if you're going to chant, conventions would be the place to do it. That's kind of a unity place. We're trying to have fun.
Well,
things
convention
like that.
is a celebration
Right.
of recovery.
But
it's not a recovery meeting.
home group, I always feel when we're chanting that I'm in some type of cult.
Right.
Okay? And then I associate that to religion.
Right.
That's what I
yeah.
do. I'm not saying everybody did, because I know when we went through that whole, I don't know if every area went through that, but where we live, we went through this whole thing with every group about chanting and saying certain things, and I just found, how do you tell a newcomer how important the readings are, and that's pretty much all they're going to probably hear if they hear that
at the meet. Yeah,
if we're talking and chanting during that, are we telling them that how important it is? Oh no, we're going to make jokes about it and chant. These things save our lives. It's important. The readings are the most important thing in a meeting.
Agreed.
And they ground us.
Correct.
I'm done.
Okay. The next one is, what are the most common causes of disunity in NA? Ego?
That's why I wrote the 90% thing. I knew I wrote it for a reason.
Okay, read it.
That was the thing I wrote. I just explained it about listening being 90%.
Okay.
So I think it is ego, but I think a lot of it has to do with is that we think communication is winning. Right. We think communication is our ideas have to be applied, and that they are the best ideas. That's what I think. Okay, I'm not telling anybody else. That's what I think.
Tell the T-shirt story. The color T-shirt.
One time there was a lady named Beverly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she did have a last name, and that is her real name. I think she might be dead now. But Beverly, I hated Beverly. I'm just telling you the truth. I just absolutely hated her. I don't know what else to tell you. And Beverly carried a gun to meetings. I didn't like that either. And Beverly was a bitch. Okay? And here we can reciprocate because Beverly hated me. And any time I shared, she would share after me to make sure that
I've had that happen.
That everybody knew that whatever I'm saying was not wise and wonderful, and it's not. But so we did this thing with the group because our groups were so our area was so big. Groups acted like small areas, and so my group had a function every year, and we would make a T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Now Beverly designed a 4-color T-shirt. Now, if you know anything about groups, they don't have a lot of money, and if you know anything about T-shirts, 4-color T-shirts are very expensive. So I kept telling them that the 4-color T-shirt isn't going to work. It's too expensive. Oh, and I had a T-shirt. I had myself a T-shirt.
How many colors did it have?
Probably two.
One
yeah.
or two? Okay.
Yeah, I would have never done a 3 or 4 because
Okay.
I'm so smart.
I understand.
But what I'm saying is the group voted for the 4-color T-shirt, and then I basically said, I don't know if we all know what we're talking about, and then I talked more about 4-color T-shirts, and we finally had 4 votes, and it was because of me and bringing it up, and I didn't like the way it voted, and Beverly's T-shirt won every time. Okay, and then when I got home and people called me about how obnoxious I was and who did I think I was, I had to really have a soul searching, and the only reason I voted against Beverly's T-shirt was because I didn't like Beverly and I wanted my T-shirt to win. That's really important because that's not unity, right? And that's not equality. That's me wanting what I want. And me pretending like I had an agenda of a 4-color t-shirt, and my agenda was fuck Beverly, right? And I didn't ever say that. That's probably what I should have said. Fuck you, Beverly, but I didn't.
Well, the rest of the story is
It was the best-selling t-shirt we ever had, and we had to get three printings of it. Okay, we never had a better selling t-shirt ever during like the 15 years we did that event.
That's wonderful.
So yeah.
Okay. Thank you for telling that. Okay. Next question is...
So that's like 150 t-shirts.
Yeah.
3 printings, 150. That's like 150 t-shirts.
That's wild. How does personal recovery depend on NA unity? Well, if NA doesn't stay unified, it doesn't stay together, it's not NA, and I don't have a meeting to go to, right?
Sounds pretty good to me.
Okay.
And
Ethel was sharing about being equal. And being equal to me in my head doesn't gel like it probably does in his head. I have to look at it as oneness or sameness. Sameness is what I work on because we're all the same. We're all just as important as the other person. And some people would say, and including Ethel, that sameness and oneness and equality are all real similar to each other. But to me, sameness makes more sense. So that's just how I looked at it.
Ethel would say they're probably all the same.
Yeah.
Because Ethel doesn't try to figure all that stuff out.
Okay.
Because, I have an example of that.
Okay.
Is that how a lot of people are so into picking out which spiritual principles are here and there and all that. Yeah. I don't do that, right? What I do is I work the steps, I work the traditions, and I know that when I'm doing that, I'm working the spiritual principles. So when they say, well, I got a list of spiritual principles, and I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's way too many. It scares the shit out of me, right? If I work 12 steps and 12 traditions, it's like I have covered so many principles, and I don't have to worry about which individual ones they are. Except for integrity is always really important to me.
I understand. The next thing I got on my bullet list is how do I practice unity in my personal life? Well, I do it in the meetings, but I also do it at home, at work. It's put here at play. I don't know what the hell that means. But specifically with my wife and my children. Unity is the spiritual principle of the first tradition. Wait a minute, I went too far. Okay. Our common welfare should come first. So the common welfare of the unit, because, and this is where, and I work with some folks, traditions are for groups, and groups are made of addicts, but a group doesn't have to be an NA group. To me, it can be any group, and that would be the group at home, a group of spouses and offspring and siblings, and grandparents and all the things that make up a home life, whatever your thing is. At work, you have a boss, you have co-workers, you have people who work, under you if you happen to be a supervisor, but definitely you work with people.
Or your supervisor's an asshole.
Yeah, and if your supervisor's an asshole, you have to learn to deal with that. But I practice some of that stuff at home, that unity, that wanting to be a member of. It's like, if you want to be a recovering addict, act like a recovering addict. You want to be a husband, act like a husband. Wife, whatever your thing is, If you don't act the way that what you're trying to be a member of, then I can practice this at home. And a lot of people don't understand that. I actually heard or read an article. It was in an AA grapevine. This is before there was early part of my life when I went to both fellowships. I think I went to both fellowships up until 85 or 86. That was a couple, and they were explaining how they worked it in their marriage, and I thought it was. And I've looked and looked and looked, and I cannot find that anywhere. So, but it really had an impact on me. I found some stuff in the. Did you want to talk about practicing?
What I wanted to do is tell you. I just wanted to add that this saved my marriage.
Oh, okay.
Okay, when I was able to realize that we were a partnership, In a partnership, I know people are going to say it could be 75, 20, but a partnership is equal. And so I might have more things to say or something, but it's equal. And that means 50-50 to me. That means nobody has the deciding vote, right? So you have to come up with some type of consensus.
I like that.
Even when you're married or your children, right? I didn't want my children to be little Ethel clones, right? I wanted them, and I didn't want them to have the same spirituality I did or do any of the same stuff that I did. I wanted them to make their own decisions. So it was really important to me to learn how to give them consequences, to help them learn what they needed to learn, as opposed to giving them consequences to make them act right so I would feel better. And to let them know and me know that they were actually independent human beings and not an extension of me. So that's how I worked it. I was looking at the play, and I think the play for me is just, why can't we all just get along? Why does it have to be so important, right? A lot of times I have a hard time, I just have had a hard time with that. And then the work thing.
Why does there have to be a winner?
Yeah, there doesn't have to be a winner. See?
Play is just for fun.
And that work thing, I haven't had a job since 1989.
You've worked for an asshole since.
Well, I've been my own boss since 1989.
That's why I say that.
And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because I'm unemployable. A lot of us are, okay? And I used to think that it was necessarily a bad thing, but I think in a lot of ways it's a strength. But I'm good for about 2 years. And then I just can't take the shit no more. And then because somebody will say something, and I'll just say something stupid. Right?
I understand.
Yeah, I used to work as a counselor, and I had to eventually I had to okay insurance, and a doctor called me a liar. And I told him he could kiss my motherfucking ass. And he complained to my supervisor, and I told them, next time he calls me a liar, I'm going to tell him he can kiss my motherfucking ass. Now, I'm not saying that's the right way to deal with it, okay? I am a very immature person. I'm just telling you that's what happened. I'm not saying that I was in the right, okay? I'm not saying I should have talked to him with more respect.
Right.
What I'm saying is that's what happens, and I become unemployable, and I can only get along with people for so long. Ethel has been married for 35 years. I don't know how that has happened. And I think that the only reason it's happened is because of the tradition. And this is the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the big one, is that I have to learn how to get along with people.
And I guess in summary, I got some things that I'm going to put them up on the video. But these are things I pulled out of the basic text, and I think it works how and why, whatever the traditions book is, yeah.
It's the green book.
The green book, yeah. To maintain unity within Narcotics Anonymous, it is imperative that the group remain stable, which to me is, it meets at the same time, it starts at the same time, it meets on the same day, it meets, at the same place, because, they used to have those rabbit meetings back around. If you didn't go to one, you didn't know where the next one was. So if you don't know what a rabbit meeting is, maybe we'll get into that and some of the NA history stuff we'll do later on.
That had to do with...
another episode.
Yeah, that had to do with police.
Another thing, this is another thing I pulled out of the basic text. In our addiction, we consistently placed our personal desires before anything else. In Narcotics Anonymous, we find that it is best for the group. What is best for the group is usually good for us. Traditions are the guidelines that protect us from ourselves. They are our unity. The next one is unity is a must in Narcotics Anonymous. And then I've got one here called the unseen members. To me, unseen members are members who are not here yet, who, the ones that come in, sneak in after it starts, speak out before it ends, and you never get a chance to talk to them, and they're real anonymous, or they come into the Zoom meeting in the last couple of years anyway, and they don't say anything, but they call them unseen members. And the last sentence I think sums everything up. Just as anonymity is the spiritual foundation of our traditions, the unity spoke of in the first tradition is the practical foundation on which we may build strong and successful groups. You're writing something. What are you writing?
Well, I just have two things I wanted to sum up.
Go for it.
What I wanted to sum up was, because I don't talk nearly as elegant as Fred does. is that this tradition teaches us the beginnings of the differences between needs versus wants.
True.
Right, and to stay clean, to figure this stuff out, you have to know what the difference between needs versus wants. So this would be one thing that I would get out of it. And then the other thing that I would like to sum up is that everybody needs to feel equal, and everybody needs to feel wanted, and everybody needs to know that their voice is important. So if, as an old timer, or as let's just say even an experienced member, it could be an experienced member. I mean, you can learn this lesson in 6 months. You don't have to be an old timer to learn this lesson. But that is that a lot of times when new people, or even sometimes people that have been coming around for a while, they don't feel like their voice is important. They don't. There might be a real strong personality. They don't know how to get their voice out. And that we have a responsibility.
It's our job.
I have a responsibility to make sure that everybody in that room is able to express their voice. So in some form or fashion, I have to figure out how to communicate that to the group during any kind of, whether it's a recovery meeting or a business meeting, because sometimes in a recovery meeting, people don't feel like they have anything to say because they're not saying anything wise. Now, they can follow after me because I never say anything wise. So, but wisdom is something I just fall into. Somebody might have taught it to me.
The perfect example of this is that, when Wednesday night we had a business meeting in my home group, and we were considering closing down one of our meetings because of lack of attendance, or, lackluster attendance, I guess, for lack of a better word, because we have 2 meetings on that day. And one of the persons, it was their first business meeting, even though they've been clean a while. They just joined our group, and they finally said something, and I caught it, and I kind of pulled it out of them. I said, no, we need to hear this. It's important. If you need this meeting, if it's the better time for you, because the ones that earlier in the evening and ones that late in the evening, and they can't do the late one. They have to do the early one. So it's one of their favorite meetings, even though it's small. And so we decided to keep it for another month. And of course, they were willing to let it go if that was the group conscious. But I said, it's not a consensus if everybody hadn't spoken. You need to say, one way or the other. And I was able to pull that out of them, and they felt more of a part of. And I was grateful.
And it's okay to disagree with anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Especially people that have strong personalities like me.
Yeah.
It's quite okay to disagree with me. And not only is it okay to disagree with me, it's okay to look at me and say, you need to let me talk.
Right.
Right? Because I'm one of those guys.
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's okay to say that. I was at a business meeting, and it really pissed me off. But the GSI was talking, I kept interrupting him. That was not kosher. And he said, Ethel, would you please let me finish my sentence? And I'm like, that's rude. And I'm like, yeah, you're the rude one.
Sometimes we're the rude one, baby. Sometimes we're the rude one. Okay. We appreciate you. Share this with your friends. Share it, with your sponsees, your sponsor, whatever. And
criticism,
pictures. All of that stuff. Like, subscribe, thumbs up.
Because we're always going to have a montage of someone. We're never showing a face.
Right. Got to have something put on the screen. Okay. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.